Well, a director is the person that glues together all the elements. They glue together the play and the lighting and the music and the sound. And actually, even things like the publicity, is that I suppose the director is the person, that, like the middle of the wheel. And the wheel doesn't exist if you don't have all the spokes, but you need somebody at the middle that glues it all together. So that's what I think the glue is. And I'm probably a bit unusual as a director because my background is in more devised theatre, so tending to start from scratch, which means traditionally I've been the one that's had the idea, but I still need everybody else. I know myself, I know how little there is in one person, and I think what a director's job is to do is to assemble amazing human beings and get the best out of them so that the piece becomes greater than the sum of its parts. The most difficult scene to rehearse, I actually think, was the seduction scene between Sir John and Rani. And in truth, sex scenes, seduction scenes are always difficult because they're embarrassing. You know, you're asking people who are not in love and are not in a real situation to show something that is very vulnerable. And I think as a director, you really have to look after people and make it safe and make it fun. I try and keep things, make sure that actors always have agency. I try never to tell actors what they should do. I might suggest. And in fact, the two actors in The Empress came from very different backgrounds. Ed Woodall was very much from a clowning background, Tanika Rose from much more of an acting background. So just to make sure that everybody has agency and has a voice, and because of my movement background, it's quite easy to say, why don't you do this, rather than thinking of it sexually, that you can make it feel a bit more playful and a bit more practical. But sex scenes are always difficult, because they make everybody feel exposed, and it's your job to make it not feel like that. I'm a great believer in throw some props and costumes at things. You know, you don't have to be brave. You don't have to sort of go in a tracksuit and try and imagine everything. I like to throw objects in because they become real, they become practical. And then it was really a dance. It was a dance between the actors, and that sometimes helps to use words that don't say seduce or find somebody attractive. Say, why don't you dance around that? What happens if you use the sofa as a playground and as a launching point? There was also the status, so the actor playing Rani had to do what her boss said, so that you can put in some simple games that again take the pressure off the actor. But that's really what I do, and every actor is different, so there isn't one solution, but you try and work out what each performer or person that you're working with responds to, and try and make something new every time. Well, again, it was very much like a dance. They were both worked very well physically, so it was about he was always trying to touch her and she was trying to avoid being touched. So that's a really simple thing, as you can say, in this scene, that's your objective. See if you can touch her 3 times and see if you can not be touched 3 times whilst not being told off by your boss. So simple things like that is really nice. And conversely, if you had actors that you wanted to be really liking each other, or characters, you might say, see if you can pass this 50p to somebody invisibly and nobody notice. So, you know, they're practical things that might release something within the scene. Objectives are really good for actors. It's it's actually pure Stanislavski, which I thought I'd never say those words, but sort of thinking, what do I want from the other person is really, really good. And sometimes if actors are floundering, it's really, really good to go back to that. So with Abdul Karim, he wanted status, you know, he was ambitious. So he needed to impress Victoria and to make himself indispensable and irresistible to her. So that's a lovely task. But at the same time, he couldn't ever cross the boundaries. And she wanted to feel like a woman, actually. I think she was quite simple. Beatty Edney was an amazing performer who is not simple at all. She's incredibly sort of mercurial and exciting, but it was quite good to remind her that she needed to be in charge, but also wanted to feel like a woman, which gives you a nice, what I call fizziness. So it's quite nice to find 2 things that are counter. And that's something I do with all my actors, is I often, with them, to do a brainstorm of lots of words that might describe a character, and then choose 3, and I choose 3 that are almost in opposition. So you might choose, I can't remember, it's a long time ago, but Abdul might be ambitious, vain, and greedy, for example. And that's, I've just plucked those out of, but it would be quite nice that you've got somebody who's vain, but is also seeing if there's a snack somewhere. So you get a little bit of comedy in that as well. And she might be frightening or forceful, traditional, and flirtatious. And that's really nice, because you've got somebody who's absolutely trying to look like the Queen, who's also going, do I look pretty today? You know, so that's what I call it contras. So you're looking for different ways that actors do not play something too simplistic, but also you're not saying be brilliant, because nobody can do anything if you say be brilliant. So you're saying try playing these things.